That usually happens on older used trucks. Yeah. So I spent many an hour underneath them. Yeah. Turn the key and that tap drops, and then it just might be. So I put in a lot of extra effort for something simple. That's usually when, yeah, that's usually what happens. When there's always parts you have to replace, so it's just like, yeah. Oh, put it in the top. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She said it was drivable, but she knows, yeah, what the deal was. The trigger chain has a certain belt, and the ball and the belts still making the squeaking noise. All right. Okay, do the bell right.
You okay saying a prayer? Are you okay saying a prayer? What? First. All right, good morning, everybody. Before we start, Jeremy, can you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us be here today, having the ability together as a family, learning about you and ourselves. Father, I just ask that you continue to be with us as we carry on through life and keep any opportunities to serve you. Lord, I also ask that you watch over John and his regular recovery works. Also ask that you with those who are sick and believe it's not able to attend, be with us, Father, and just for us to take advantage of this time. We have one
Amen. All right, we are in John chapter 6. And if I could get a volunteer to read 1 through 21. Okay, Warren, John chapter 6, verses 1 through 21.
After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him, because they saw his sign which he performed on those who were believing. And Jesus went up on the mountain. There he sat with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" This he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?" Then Jesus said, "Take a piece of it." Now there was much grass in the field, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. party began at the mountain of fire. Now when evening came, the disciples began to got into the boat, went over to the sea, where it returned. And it was already dark. Jesus had not come. Then the sea arose above the great wind. So when they had rowed about 3 foot of line, they saw Jesus walking on the sea, drawing near the boat. They were afraid. And he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they readily received him into the boat, and immediately the boat had land.
Okay. We're in John chapter 6. My first question doesn't really matter. It's not important to your faith or anything. Just my curiosity, what you guys think. Was the food coming up from the bottom of the basket? Was it like you took some off the top and then it magically refilled in between handing it to the next person? How did this work?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that the people knew that, and obviously the apostles knew, do you think the people knew this was a miracle happening right in front of them, or was Jesus doing it in a way that just, oh, we just got enough food? Wyatt?
I'd say, yeah, they had to perceive that this was something miraculous happening, because their statement was, hey, this is the one. This is the prophet who can come.
Okay.
They were talking to something spectacular.
Okay, so it was somehow happening in front of them. At least it seems like they knew there wasn't as much food, there wasn't enough food to feed all these people. That would have been a very difficult thing to keep secret anyway. Since we don't have miracles today, I'm just always fascinated on the mechanics of it, how it actually works. And I don't think there's a real answer, but go ahead, Daniel.
I would imagine it much like the movie set, I think you're describing, where there's like a surface level of the food, and as they pull it, just magically.
Like a vending machine, the stuff from the bottom pops up.
Yeah, right. As dispenser.
No, it's interesting to me that, does it say he preached here? I'm not sure that it actually says that he does, but I'd be surprised if he didn't take this opportunity to at least say something. And I wonder if he was frustrated with, okay, the miracle's happening, it's happened, now pay attention to what I have to say. But I know it doesn't affect our faith, how this actually happened, and it doesn't really matter getting to an answer. But I try to put myself back in that time and think about what they were going through and how they would have reacted. And you wonder by the 3,000th person, are they like, yeah, these baskets refilled, no worry, has the miracle already gotten so mundane by that point that people are like, yeah, I'll take a few extra because there's plenty. Which reminds me, makes me think of us. God's done so much for us. We're just like, yeah, pass that basket because he's done so much for me. It's you don't even think about it. So just a little encouragement to still be in awe and amazed at the things Jesus is doing for you. Keith.
Might affect our faith a little bit in this regard. When we're studying with someone else, we're confounded, clearly confounded by this. How did this work? What were the people around when these things happened for us? But when we read this and think of someone not familiar with the Bible, we really
Well, and I think one of the wisest things you can say when you're teaching someone or as a parent is, I don't know. I, we're in a time in history where we know everything, and people think we know everything, and all the information is in our hand. And so the idea of not knowing something and having faith is hard to get across to somebody who's got a scientific brain or very logical, and admitting we don't know. We don't know, and because it's not in here, we don't need to know. It's fun to think about it, it's interesting to talk about, but we don't need to know everything. Wyatt?
Sorry, keep going. Should move on. The impact to this group is the scarcity, compared to the scarcity that they live in compared to we. For us, abundance is our norm. Having food just there in abundance is pretty normal. They have to spend all day prepping. So for food just there. Are you kidding? 5,000 of us here. I don't see a wagon here hauling the food. How do they get it? That's what that is.
Yeah, for us, this would be like a normal potluck. Yeah, there's 12 basketfuls left over. Everybody ate more than they could possibly eat. For them, this was like, this was life-changing for them. I can eat as much. I'm sure most of these people had never been in a situation where they could eat as much as they wanted. That alone would have just been mind-boggling to them. Daniel, and then more. Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Which goes back to Wyatt's point. They must have seen, acknowledged that this was a miracle. Warren?
Yeah, I'm just adding on that, so that's fast or slow, and that process took, that was just fast or slow. How that. That was something like that. Communication that using the word as to how we practice travel.
Well, and that leads me to what I feel is a little more important question to answer. You all have kind of touched on that, on what our expectations are and what the impact was, what he was trying to do. How does Jesus choose who to feed and who to heal? Because that's a question that plagues us even today. So the town over is going, they're begging on the street, starving, going, well, this whole group got unlimited food? How do we, and to me, I think, to Keith's point of teaching someone, they want to know, but this is the question I think that comes up more often than when you're studying with somebody is, my mom died of cancer, my dad had this terrible, how does Jesus decide? Warren?
That question is different for people in his time. He did it with children. Now, we have to work with it. We have abundance of food. We have abundance of knowledge. So sometimes it's different. We have to change the information that he gives us. He gives us some other tools like find out who he is, you know, his word. There's a lot of we have to choose.
Okay. Well, I agree with you. We have to choose Jesus no matter what happens. Whether he, in our opinion, never performs anything in our life ever, we still need to choose him. And I agree with you, too, that we have, at least in this room, we have abundance. But there's plenty of people in the world that don't. And that right there, why did he choose us? We're sitting here, I don't think any of us in this room are wondering what we're gonna have for lunch today. And then dinner, you know, and we had breakfast, and we're gonna lock the door tonight and be safe. And if it's a little warm, we'll turn on the air. If it's a little cold, we'll turn on the heat. And just 100 miles to the south, that's not happening. Lisa? I think we would all agree that Jesus didn't just perform miracles willy-nilly, that he had a purpose every time he was doing miracles. And I think we can all agree with Lisa that we don't always know what that purpose is. And that's the same today. Sometimes, we look at somebody that gets healed and then the next person doesn't get healed or falls off a ladder. You're like, why this person and not that? There were probably hundreds of men who shouldn't have been on ladders this weekend that got up and got right back down. John wasn't that lucky. Well, that's true. He did get up and down, but not in the way any of us would have wanted. And I don't mean to make light of that, but it's a very recent example of something where we're all believers. God could have easily stabilized the ladder. He could have had him land differently, but he didn't. Dad?
Knowing this stuff is sometimes such a frustration in people's lives. And that is what our faith is supposed to overcome. And we're also supposed to translate that into our life outside of serving God on a particular faith. An example I did, can you imagine if World War II was fought with all the internet and everything that we have today? Today the war on Iran, they want to know every second how many bombs, how many people, how many, and because we have almost that good of access to the information, but we have to learn to live to where we can't control this. We can vote somebody out or vote somebody in. Once you're in the middle of something, I don't want to be the commander in charge. They've got to deal with that. We have to put our faith in that God is working with people. God is taking care of whatever has to be taken care of. And it may not be taken care of the way we want it. But that's part of our faith.
Well, to me, that's probably the most difficult part about being a Christian. Is, temptations are hard, but at least I understand them. I understand that I'm being tempted. I understand that I need to overcome it. How God chooses to work or not work in your life is one of the most difficult things. And every single person in this room has been through it. We have all been through something where, and I'm sure a lot of you have even said, why me? Why is this happening to me or to the people I care about? When right over there, those people have it great. And of course, those people are dealing with something you don't even know about, and they're going, why me? Why am I dealing with this when they only have to deal with that? But I think, this is an interesting, kind of a weird passage to draw this out of, but it really in a mundane way shows Jesus chooses what he chooses to do for his own reasons. And fully understanding that is impossible. I mean, we can joke about how the food got there, but we don't know. And we never will fully know that. We won't know why some people get cancer and some people don't. I mean, we'll know some of the causes and some things you can do to prevent it, but even with as much knowledge as we have today, there's still doctors all over the world that are going, we don't know. We don't know why this happened. And as much knowledge as we get, I don't think that's ever going to change. There are going to be things we just don't understand. And accepting that Jesus does have a plan and that the good things he's done for you are to draw you closer to him, and the bad things he lets happen are to draw you closer to him. That, to me, is a fundamental step of Christianity. If you can get to that point to accept that and be able to live joyfully with that lack of knowledge, I'm not there yet. That's like the goal. Daniel and then Dad.
I think it's actually, I love that kind of digging into it. Like you said, they seem random, kind of asking questions. I think it's fun to do that, because I would certainly agree with at least in others that God's going to do what he will, with grace, not only mercy, justice, compassion, all of those. But what I think is really intriguing is we have the opportunity to influence that. That he loves us that much that we can actually influence that. Doesn't mean we'll get what we want, but I think what I was thinking of when I was walking was that lady who reached out and touched his garment. She's healed. And that faith she had, I mean, she took action. She didn't just pray. She's like, I just touched this. And then you've got other scenarios where you got Paul with this thorn in my side. I asked you like 3 times, or however many it was. And he's like, my grace is sufficient. I'm not sure what that is. We're going to deal with it. It's going to be okay, by the way. Because ultimately I provide, beyond also parents and those of course. But now, taking that back to this group, I can understand Jesus' frustration, where he's like, all right, you got the contrast to this lady who has this great faith and is seeking him because of what she knows and things he can do. And then you got these people like, whoo, I know what he can do. It's so good. I need more of that in this food.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? Like, if he's doing that, imagine what else he can do that he has for you. And it's like, I'm trying to show you what else more importantly there is, yet you're following because of your hunger. It's like, if they were more like maybe the lady, or even Paul, because even if he didn't get it, he knew, God, food is like, he comes out, he can take this away from you. But it would just fail. That's what it seems a lot.
Well, and in a lot of the passages in John that we've read and are going to read, Jesus, he asked, where'd they go? All these people I performed this miracle, where are they now? What are they doing? His frustration that, and really the answer, or one of the answers to why didn't he do this for me, or why, it would never be enough. Even if he did it for you, you would be asked, okay, well now, do more for me. We're never satisfied. And God and Jesus know that. Dad?
One of the things we know for sure is never going to happen in all that Jesus told the apostles that we will always have the Lord. That problem is never going to be fixed. We all have responsibilities for it. We have a good responsibility to help. We have all kinds of things. But there is always going to be more than sense. There's going to be sickness. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars. All those things is because sin came into the world. If it hadn't been for that, man, it'd be just like the world. It'd be perfect. But it's not going to be. And so we have to do our best in showing our faith in God and knowing that this world is in a turmoil because of sin.
Well, and going, accepting that, and accepting that part of that is my sin. My sin is causing some of this. But then also going to Daniel's point about taking action, believing that Jesus is in control, God is in control, but also that we have the power to change that. That's like, if you can get to that point where you can accept all the good, all the bad with joy, but also have the faith to pray with confidence that God is listening to your prayer and then accepting that answer, yes or no. Once you guys have that all unlocked, come let me know how you figured all that out. Keith?
Not sure how much discussion I have on this particular topic, but I do believe that is the most important thing about it. At least my opinion about this topic. For us to have talked about it and have questions about it, and in this venue, this is very safe for us to talk about it. So have a question. Maybe here's an answer for it. I don't know the answer. But our goal, for all of us, when we think about it, is speaking of it. And that's just a huge thing. Because I personally believe, these are my experience, this topic is probably the number one tripping hazard for those who know.
And I would say for Christians as well.
It can be.
Yeah.
Because we view it as, well, if God has, and God has this ability, all by the encompassing power of will, to remove this from me, why didn't he? And yet my neighbor, he did. And so my point is that we're studying this, regardless of some of the questions that we don't have an answer, but we can always direct people to God. And there's so many scriptures that we can examine and talk about. One of them is just the simple providence of God. And you mentioned about all the blessings we have right at our fingertips. Why don't they cross the door? Forget it. We can't answer that. But what we can answer is the providence of God. My son-in-law taught me a huge lesson. Many years ago, very young, and in a prayer, I'll never forget it, he said, very careful. That is a blessing. And with all of those blessings from God, whether we're a believer or not, God gives them. And that's why we have to be careful. We have to be very vigilant. I was studying with somebody and they had questions about why are they so blessed? Well, let's examine that. Were they blessed with or without? Not blessed with God. God's word says that everyone who comes to him and believes in him, they are blessed. And then he goes on and he talks about the blessing of Jesus Christ coming, dying, and raising again. That's the concept, that's the discussion for us to lead people to, because that's what we need. Anyway,
Well, along those lines, this is one of my favorite passages. It's in John, so we're gonna read it again later on down the line, but I'm gonna read it now. John chapter 21. Starting at verse 20. Peter turned around and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following him. One who also had leaned back on his chest at the supper and said, Lord, who is the one who is betraying you? So Peter, upon seeing him, said to Jesus, Lord, and what about this man? Jesus said to him, if I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. So I kind of alluded to we don't really have an answer, but we do have an answer. The answer is follow Jesus. And even 2,000 years ago, well, what about him? I forget where it says, but in verse 19, he said this, indicating by what kind of death he would glorify God. The apostles apparently perceived that to mean that John wouldn't die. And as we know, all the other apostles had horrific deaths. And so you can understand Peter going, well, what about me? You follow me. What is it to you if I bless everyone around you? What is it to you if everyone around you is suffering and you get a mountain of blessings? It doesn't matter. You follow me. Right?
Everyone needs miracles. There is inherently a benefit to an individual or a group. That's clearly not perfect.
Yeah.
It's pointing toward I am the answer.
Yeah.
We know the world is bad because of sin, and that's brought in all kinds of people, sickness, and disease, and everything else. And we can also translate that down into smaller segments. Part of the reason we're blessed here is because 250 years ago, there was a group of guys that said, we are not going to live under this dominant world with a king that's going to tax us to death. We're going to go legally and freely. Possibly some of the reason that people 100 miles south of us don't have some of the blessings, they didn't get that same benefit. And your life and your decisions affect generations. They don't bear your sin. They're not guilty of your sin. But they get the effect of your sin. And that may be what has happened. And again, that's God's plan. We can't control it. But we can thank Him for where we are.
Yeah, you can't control where you were born or who your parents were, but you can control what you do with that. And every situation in life, whatever life throws at you, you can choose to follow him or not. That is 100% up to you. Keith?
Final comment from me on this. Paul said, this is, I keep thinking about studying, trying to bring those together. Paul says in Romans 8 that God is for us. Who's against us? And that's a very strong point for us. When we study this way, they're studying because they believe God to find an increase in faith. And that's just such a strong point. Yeah, I don't have enough food to believe it, but whatever. But if God is for us, who can be against us? And that's the point that makes me right there. And then our job is to account. Because we don't have to faith necessarily. Also, as an organization, if God is for us, who can be against us? And he goes on and talks about life, death, and resurrection.
And like you said, it's up to us to be a light and salt and share the word. But eventually it comes down to you follow me. Every individual has to make that decision on their own. And you cannot make them make that decision. All right, let's move on a little bit in chapter 6. Can I get 3 volunteers to read? Wyatt, can you read 22 through 40? Bob, 41 through 59, and Keith, 60 through 71.
On the following day, when the people who were standing on the other side of the sea saw that there was no other boat there, except the one that the disciples had entered, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but his disciples had gone away alone. However, other boats came from Tiberias, near the place where they ate bread after the Lord had given thanks. When the people therefore saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they also got in boats and came to the place, seeking Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Jesus answered them and said, most assuredly I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw the sun, but because you ate the loaves and the fish. Do not labor for food which perishes, but for food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you. Because God above has set his seal Father who sent me that of all he has given me, I shall lose nothing, but should raise it up in the last day. This is the will of him who sent me. Everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up in the last day.
At this, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can we now say, I came down from heaven? Stop grumbling among yourselves. Jesus answered, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone has heard the Father and learned from him who comes to me. No one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I give to live for the life of the world. Then the Jews began to argue sharply among themselves. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? Jesus said to them, very truly I will tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, you will have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, I will live because of the Father. So the one who feeds on me, will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died. Whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. He said this while teaching in the synagogue of Capernaum. Therefore, many of his disciples, when they heard this, said, this is a hard saying. Who can understand it? When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples complained about this, he said to them, does this offend you? Well, what then if you should see the Son of Man ascend where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak to you are spirit, they are life. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe and who would betray him. And he said, therefore I have said to you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted to him by my Father. At that time, many of his disciples went back and walked with him no more. And Jesus said to the 12, do you also want to go away? But Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Also we have come to believe and know that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered them, did I not choose you, the 12, and one of you is a devil? He spoke of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, for it was he who would betray him, being one of the 12.
Long passage there, but kind of hard to break it up because it's all really connected. And it's really interesting. We kind of laid the groundwork. He answers a lot of the questions we've been discussing, and he addresses them in a way better than certainly than I could. It's also interesting to me, Brent keeps asking questions in the lesson about how does this relate to the Old Testament? How is this a signifier of the Old Testament? And a lot of times I'm like, I don't think it is. I'm not sure. But very clear here he's referring to the Old Testament with the manna and all that. And I think in verse 32, again, it answered one of the questions we've had. He says, Moses didn't give you that bread. God did. Everything good you have is from God. And you guys have raised Moses up to be God, and he's not. That one of the other things that I thought was very interesting in on page 18, question 2, how no one can come to me unless drawn by the Father who sent me. What do you think that means? Is God picking people to draw to him? And how does that work? Donna?
Well, it's my prejudice that no, he's not picking individual people. But everybody sees the sunrise and the sunset. Everybody sees babies born that look like their mom and dad. And some people's hearts say there must be something better than than the physical world, and some hearts don't. And kids can grow up in the same family, and one of them just loves the whole idea of God, and the other one goes, I don't know, not so sure.
Well, we've talked about kind of the blessings we have here and different blessings for different people, but Donna brings up an excellent point. Every single person has seen the sunrise and the sunset. Every single person has seen a tree or a flower. Maybe, you're not Tyler and you were on the floor giving birth, but we've all seen the results of birth. We've all seen the miracle of a life. Those are things everyone has experienced in some way on this planet. And that's my question. We've all seen that. How do we get someone in the same family that, because God created the hearts too. So how is there a heart that is drawn to him and a heart that's not? Dad?
Well, when Jesus starts explaining this, he says, my Father's will is that I don't lose anybody. But we all know that's not true. That doesn't happen. I mean, that's God's will.
Well, okay, I was going to say,
The results are,
just to be clear, that what God said is true.
yes, but the results are,
Yeah.
that doesn't always happen.
Yes.
And he then goes on to explain he's going to lose Judas, and he's the devil.
And
some-
poor Simon gets thrown in there.
Yeah, and a bunch of the disciples leave. It's too hard to say. We're out of here.
Yeah.
We can't deal with it anymore. So sometimes God's will is overridden by his justice. It's overridden. He set down the rules, and he has to abide by the rules because he's perfect.
I think what you're saying, his desire is overridden by his
Yes,
justice,
yes.
not will. I wouldn't 100%.
Kind of the semantics we went through last week.
Yes, but just to be clear, what he wills will happen no matter what, but his desire,
What he wants,
yes,
whether that's desire or will,
Yeah.
what he wants doesn't always happen. He wanted Adam and Eve to live perfectly in the garden, and guess what? They didn't. He would wish all of that for all of us. So sometimes his justice overrides that desire because he's perfectly just. And so sometimes we end up living in a great country and some other people don't. Not because he doesn't want us all to be happy, it's just that's the way it is, it's because of decisions other people have made.
okay. Warren?
And it's our free will that gets in the way of that. It's our free will that's part of that plan. And the Father's not physically drawing in a sense, okay, I'm picking you, you come here. It's the word that we are, through our free will, accepting, acknowledging that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, accepting that through faith, and that's how we're responding.
Well, and that free will messes up everything. And that to allow us, because he could have created us all with a heart that's just going to follow him, no matter what, and we'd all be living in the Garden of Eden. But for me to have the free will to love my Savior and to serve him, then he has to have the free will to allow injustice to happen temporarily on this earth. And that you can't have, they're intertwined, which means some people are going to make bad decisions. And some of them are going to be Hitler-level decisions, and some of them are just going to be, I didn't turn my blinker on. But they're all decisions that are results of free will. And God has set it up that he's going to let that happen temporarily so that you have the opportunity. Another one of my favorites is, I think it's Peter. He doesn't want anybody to suffer. He's patient. He's waiting because he wants everybody to come to him. But it's dependent on our free will. Warren?
And I don't know if this is a new trend or something, but I've heard a lot of, well, I've had opportunity to talk about how did God let Satan have all this power, the ability to influence us, and pull us away from learning and knowing about God. And it seems to be a big thing that people focus on. They've always wanted to know why it's been done as far as good things, but as far as bad things, our free will, Satan, why does God allow Satan to do these things, atrocities?
And I agree with you, that's a really trendy question, but I disagree that it's, well, I don't think you were saying, I don't think it's new.
I mean, there's a lot, there seems to be a lot.
It seems to be in our face more, but that question has been around
All around.
forever. Yeah. I'm sure the Israelites were going, when they're in Egypt, why us? Why is he letting all this slave? Yeah. And we can look at very large-scale trauma throughout history and go, why them? Why this? Why the Jews? Why the Israelites? Why? All throughout history, there's people that have been oppressed in horrific ways. Keith?
It kind of seems that cursory reading here in verse 44 can be, what? So, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him? No, wait, no, okay, so God didn't draw him. He doesn't draw him. That can be a cursory reading or a conclusion to that, but that's not the case at all. It seems in this text that here you have the Jews in verse 41 are complaining about what Jesus said, okay? And they're going to complain in that regard. And they go, isn't this Jesus, the son of Joseph, et cetera, et cetera. And then verse 43, Jesus says, he answers them, don't murmur among yourselves. And then he just states a fact, and the fact is, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. I will raise him up on the last day. Jesus is simply making a statement, and that is God's action. What is God's action? It is the answer to me, it seems, it is in verse 45. It is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by God. Therefore, everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. That is the answer. There is going to be a lot of questions in that for everyone. But that really, it seems, is the answer to this text. Because God draws, he draws us by.
Well, and that goes back to the manna, Jesus, this whole thing. The manna wasn't from Moses, it's God. All the good stuff is from God, and that's what draws you. I know we went through a lot this morning, but I want to leave you with verse 29. This is the work of God, that you believe in him who he has sent. That sums up pretty much everything we've talked about this morning. So I know we covered a lot. If there's anything on chapter 6 that you want to talk about next week, let me know or bring it up next week. But otherwise, we will get into John chapter 7. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
I'm supposed to be taking calls,
Oh, you were?
but I want to switch with like opening prayer and you can do it.
well, I said, no, I was,
No, Rodney's not gonna be here today. Yep. So it should be Isaac, Daniel's here, so he can take his, and then Isaac can take your spot.
Yeah,